Hi, I'm Rich Kutchman with Strategic Self-Reliance and Defense, and in today's video we're going to continue the TCCC series, or Tactical Combat Casualty Care series, continuing with we made it to respirations. So we've covered massive hemorrhage, airway, and now we've made it to our respirations. Alright, so remember the March PAWS acronym in TCCC is simply a way for you to remember the priority of care. It's the order that we do things, right? So again, R is respirations. Most of you guys already know that respirations means breathing, right? It's the mechanical act of breathing. So it's not just enough to be breathing, right? You have to have adequate respirations, meaning you have to be actually moving a sufficient volume of air into your lungs and then back out of your lungs. Right. So without getting overly deep on this, we breathe based on pressures inside of our chest cavity. Right, inside of our thoracic cavity, we have differing pressures, and that's what allows air to go in and then come out of our lungs. That is the act of respiration. To maintain that pressure, adequate pressures, you have to have an intact chest wall, intact thoracic cavity. If you have extra holes in your chest wall, then you can be losing that pressure, and the result is a collapsed lung or worse. All right, so those extra holes, of course, would be a gunshot wound, a stab wound, a penetrating injury of any kind. It could be from shrapnel, could be from impaling yourself on a stick when you're walking through the woods. All right, extra holes are bad, and we're going to get to how we treat those. So before we actually get to the fun stuff, chest seals and sealing sucking chest wounds, let's talk about something even more basic, and that's just the act of breathing, just respirations, okay? So the first question you have to ask yourself when you look at a casualty, right? You've made it through massive hemorrhage, you've treated them, you've made it through airway, they've got an open airway, okay? Or you've opened their airway, and now you're on R, respiration. So you got to ask yourself, are they breathing? So are they breathing? And not only are they breathing, but is it adequate? And really what that comes down to, simplest terms, is if it's inadequate, we have to do something. Inadequate really means, are they breathing too fast? Are they breathing too slow? Or are they having what we call agonal breathing or gasping? They're gasping for air. If they're gasping, that is not adequate, right? So if any of those circumstances are encountered, right, inadequate breathing, they're either not breathing at all or it's inadequate. Too fast, too slow, gasping. You're going to need to do what we used to call artificial respiration. Now we pretty much refer to it as rescue breathing, right? Rescue breathing can be done mouth to mouth, right? You can do it mouth to mask, and most of you guys are familiar with pocket masks, right? So this just allows you to have a barrier device between you and your victim. One-way valve, in case they vomit, blood, snot, all that stuff, you keep it out of your mouth, right? So barrier, this is a mask. Some of them are just sheets of vinyl with a valve. But either way, mouth to mask. And if you've learned it, like if you're a paramedic or an EMT, you work in the hospital, you're used to the bag valve mask, right? It's a big bag, just like you watch on TV. It's the same mask connected to a bag that you pump or you squeeze. All right, so rescue breathing. If you're going to provide rescue breathing, we want to do it about 10 to 12 times a minute for an adult. That works out to about one breath every 5 to 6 seconds. Now, you're not trying to blow up a balloon here, so it's just a normal breath, one of your normal breaths on an adult. So you're an adult, you're treating an adult, normal breath, okay? You're not trying to blow up a balloon. All right, so we've treated, we've covered breathing, artificial respiration, or rescue breathing. Let's talk about the fun stuff, penetrating injury and trauma. So when we talk about penetrating injury to the thoracic cavity, the chest, right? We got front, back, sides. It's all the way around the barrel you got to worry about. And when we talk about penetrating injury, any wound from the collarbone, right, the clavicles, to the belly button, all the way around the body, all the way around the thoracic cavity, okay? So And people ask, well, why so low on the belly button? That's not my chest. But you got to remember your diaphragm, when you breathe in, your diaphragm goes down, and we give ourselves a little margin for error. It goes down pretty darn close to the belly button on some folks. So if you were shot or stabbed right at full inspiration, right, and your diaphragm's all the way in the lowest position, you might very well have a thoracic injury. So again, collarbone to belly button all the way around. If you see a hole, we got to put a seal on it. All right, you're going to hear the adage, tourniquet the limbs, pack the junctions, seal the box, okay? In our previous videos, we talked about tourniqueting the limbs and packing the junctions, right? That's talking about massive hemorrhage, treating bleeding, stopping the bleed. Tourniquet the limbs, stop extremity hemorrhage, pack the junctions, stop junctional bleeds. Now we're on sealing the box. All right, the way we seal the box, and again, the box is that all the way around, 360 degrees around the chest, collarbone to belly button, and we use a product. We call them chest seals. Okay, this is a Hyphen. Another big company out there that makes them are Halo. There's different varieties of them. This is an individual pack, so there's just one in here. A lot of packages come with 2 chest seals. The idea here is, you get shot with a high velocity weapon, entry wound, exit wound. You got to cover them both. All right. Some of these are vented, some are not. This one is not. I'm going to show you here. I'm going to open it. All right. All right. All this is, they give you a little piece of gauze here. This is meant to wipe the blood, the sweat, the tears, the dirt away, whatever you got to wipe away. So that this is just a big sticky Band-Aid. Occlusive dressing is all it is. Okay. But you got to wipe away the gunk so this sticks. It's got to stick. If it doesn't stick, it's not going to work. All right. And it's just like you see here. It's got a sticky side right here. You pull off the backing. You clean the wound. You cover it. So, say the wound's right here in the middle. Boom. All right. You stick it down. You put one of these on every hole you find. Okay. Every hole has to be covered. Now, let's say you run out of chest seals, right? You've only got maybe you got a pack of 2. You covered 2 wounds, and you're out. You can use this too. It's occlusive. You just have to use tape to hold it down. Okay. So whatever works, you got to seal those openings, seal those holes, because if you don't, you potentially have what we call sucking chest wound. As the person casually breathes, pressures in the chest wall change, and it sucks air through that open wound, that extra hole. All right? And if the air goes in and then comes back out, it's not as big of an issue. The lung will collapse. That's not a big deal. You've got 2. As long as we're only dealing with one side, it's not too bad. The problem is when the air goes in and doesn't come back out, which happens, more often than we'd like to see. When that happens, air goes in, doesn't come out. Air goes in, with each breath, doesn't come out. And we end up with what we call a tension pneumothorax. Not only does it collapse the lung, but eventually it hyperinflates that side of the chest, pushes on the great vessel, so circulation, gets affected, pushes on the heart, so the heart can't pump effectively. And you keep pushing as you inflate that side, and it affects the good lung. Okay? And when it affects the good lung, now you really have problems, right? That is a true emergency. Tension pneumothorax is a life-threatening emergency you got to deal with. Now, it's beyond the scope of this video to tell you how to treat a tension pneumothorax. In the emergency room, they'll do things like a pneumodart, or they'll put in a chest tube right away. In the field, we use decompression with a needle, but that's beyond the scope here. So, suffice it to say, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover all the openings, all those holes with the seal, with the chest seal, and we're going to watch our patient very closely. If they start to have increasing dyspnea or shortness of breath, they're really having a hard time breathing, likely they're developing a tension pneumothorax. All right. So the easy way, to treat that is simply burp, what we call burp the chest. So you put this occlusive dressing on. You've stopped air from going in through the chest wall, but let's say there's also a hole in the inner workings of the chest, right? The anatomy of the bronchi and the alveoli, the lung itself is leaking air. So every time you breathe in, a little bit of air is coming out of the air, the bronchial tree, the airway, and it's collecting in that thoracic cavity, in that chest cavity, but it can't get out, right? So you got to get that air out. So burping it is simply peeling back a corner and letting the air escape, right? And you'll know it if it's working because as you peel it off, you'll hear it. It's like releasing air from a tire. Now I will say that often it'll be a little bit of blood. Sometimes it squirts out at you too. So, foamy, bloody air will come out, right? And if that works, the patient will feel better almost immediately. All right, so that's chest seals, burp in the chest. So again, recap here. Make sure they're breathing. If they're not breathing, rescue breathe for them, right? Every 5 to 6 seconds. If they got penetrating injuries, seal the box. Chest seals over each hole. Watch them for signs of tension pneumothorax. If their respirations get more difficult, burp those chest seals, all right? And that's pretty much it for today, right? That's R in a nutshell, respirations, all right? So next video, we'll continue the March PAWS acronym. We'll work on C. I guess we'll make it to C, circulation. All right, so once again, my name is Rich Kutchman with Strategic Self-Reliance and Defense. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in class.